we're going to have a lower standard of living in 1980.
Oh, I'm very optimistic. 5 years off for us right now is a big question mark.
Single-family house will be a thing of the past.
I think that business in 5 years won't be any different than it was 50 years ago.
Women own most of the wealth today. Tomorrow, they may manage most of the wealth.
We're going to be expecting business to conserve energy.
I see that general aviation is going to be a very strong force in the 1980s.
Prices are going to go beyond control.
Business in general is going to have to scramble pretty hard to maintain its present profit levels.
Prediction about the world of 1980 is easy. Proof is hard. Hello, I'm Louis Rukeyser, inviting you to join me on a journey into the future of business. Everyone is intrigued by the future, but for the businessman, this is no idle speculation, for his recent business history makes strikingly clear those who don't plan for the future are likely to be overwhelmed by it. The pace of change in the last generation has verged, appropriately, on the supersonic. Change itself has been the only constant. Change in markets and manners, in products and prices, in systems and styles. What once seemed endless has now proved finite, as we have seen with energy. How then can anyone speak with certainty about what business will be like in 1980? Given the recent record of most economic forecasters, the most appropriate posture in talking about the future should be one of deep modesty. But there are men who have prepared for the present better than most, and who, in many cases, will have much to say about how the future will look for all of us. It is to some of these people, businessmen, government officials, and professors, that we will look now for signposts on our journey. We're going to consider 5 main areas in which the business world of 1980 could be conspicuously different from what we know today. The way we work, the way we use energy, the way we transport ourselves, the way we handle money, and the way we meet our international challenges. And since all of business begins and ends with people, let's start with the workforce and get some expert views on how life with and for the worker may be different in the decade of the 80s.
I think it's important to realize that the whole population of the country is very much more sophisticated, very much more educated than they perhaps were 50 years ago. And under those circumstances, it behooves any company to understand that their workers are very intelligent people in most instances, and you cannot have them in routine jobs. Men ought to do the creative thinking and do the things that they want to do that make life worthwhile. Machinery ought to do the routine jobs. It's a matter of industry learning how they can use a new tool, whether it was a bow and arrow, or an airplane, or a computer. It's something that increases man's capability. And businesses are just beginning to learn what they can do with these machines.
About 100 years from now, when the history of the computer industry is written, I think it'll be said that the computer did the most for education. And this is just beginning to appear now, where the computer is being able to assist in the learning process. And I think that by 1980, you will see rather widespread usage of computers in industry in upgrading the skills of people.
As the technology increases, fewer workers will be required. This would call for some innovation in society. Some of the adjustments may be available, workers working shorter hours or workers sharing a single job. We will have more free time. A lot of this free time will be spent on personal development. Women in the future will be more aggressive in seeking positions at the very top of the management hierarchy. They will seek equal opportunity within the firm, similar salary, similar perks.
Employees are requesting and demanding and insisting on increased benefits, insurance-type benefits, retirement benefits, fringe benefits of all nature. At the present time, many employers are spending approximately 25% of payroll to provide fringe benefits. And there's every indication that these costs are going higher and higher. Now, if the fringe benefit costs do increase at a rate higher than the normal inflation rate, the businessman is going to have to balance the cost of these things along with the cost of his cash compensation and have a very good communication program to ensure that his employee realizes that the total compensation package is adequate and satisfactory.
There are a lot of changes that have to be made relative to the employee. One of the things that we find with the younger people is that they're asking more about job satisfaction than they are about salaries even. This is certainly different from the past. A company has to be aware of these changing values in order to accommodate itself in the future, because these are different people with different motivations.
Different people with different motivations, possibly. But is this greater emphasis on working conditions and fringe benefits, on an automated society that provides more leisure and a shorter work week, likely to achieve fruition by 1980?
I'm not at all certain that we're going to have more leisure time in 1980 than we have today. As a matter of fact, we may be having to put in more time in 1980. Leisure time is a function of a higher standard of living, and we're going to have a lower standard of living in 1980. If we measure standard of living by the 1950, 1960 standards of having 2 big cars in every garage and having every kind of mechanical gadget there is and profligate use of fuels and energy, then our standard of living is clearly going to be reduced by 1980. The only way we can compensate for that is for every individual person to produce more and work more, produce more per week or per month or per year, in order to try to keep up. And for this reason, I do not see the problem of leisure time being as great as some people suppose.
Grim words from Congressman McCormick, and the grim suggestion that any optimistic forecast about the world of 1980 is in doubt unless we can solve our energy problems. What, if anything, can the foresighted businessman do there?
Many businessmen in developing their organizations today are appointing vice presidents for energy management, just to bring into sharper focus the very important function that energy plays in the whole economics of a business operation. So as businessmen look to the future, I think from both an organizational standpoint and a staffing standpoint, they're going to have to consider bringing in energy experts. This is a new dimension in business organizational structure, but I think it's a very important dimension. We're going to be expecting business to conserve energy, to cut back its energy demands from the current rate of growth of some 5% a year to something like 2% a year. It's going to mean greater use of electricity, and by the same token, it's going to mean considerably less reliance on natural gas. The businessmen of this country, in buying equipment and designing new industrial processes, are going to have to consider energy conservation and energy efficiency as a very important part of their capital spending plan.
In 1980, the United States will be dependent still primarily upon petroleum and natural gas as it is today. We will be undergoing a tremendous crash program to explore and develop new oil and gas fields onshore and off and in Alaska. But this will be only to try to keep up with our demand, and we'll still be dependent upon overseas oil as much as we are today. We'll be shifting more and more to electricity. And by 1980, about 20% of our electricity will be nuclear energy as we go into this vastly accelerated program to take advantage of the nuclear research and development program we've had going for the last 20 years.
There are a number of industries which are feeding into the capital spending boom that we're witnessing right now, and those industries will experience good growth. The non-electrical machinery industry is one, since that feeds into the capital goods industry. Machine tools, other types of business equipment, materials handling equipment, and so on, will experience good growth prospects for the near term. So that virtually all industries tending to feed into energy and the transportation of energy resources, such as oil or coal, will experience some benefits from the capital spending bill.
It's scarcely news to any American that our habits of energy consumption are going to have to undergo some changes in the years ahead. But what does that signify in terms of the nation's transportation system? According to most authorities, the smart businessman of 1980 will have thought in terms of mass transit for his workers and new means of transportation for his goods.
One of the most significant changes that we're going to see in lifestyle is in the whole transportation sector. Today, 25% of the energy in this country is consumed in transportation, and about half that is consumed in the automobile. As petroleum becomes scarcer and more expensive, we're going to have to change the way in which we use our cars and we're going to have to rely more heavily on mass transit. So as businessmen think about the future, they're going to have to build and locate their facilities in such a way that their employees have greater access to mass transit. And as businessmen look for new opportunities in the future, they're going to have to look for those kinds of opportunities which will enable them to participate in the very rapid growth we see for mass transit systems.
I see mass transit making an increasingly significant contribution to moving people from their home to their workplace, from their home to their recreation place. This is going to mean a lot more mass transit rolling stock, principally buses. It's going to mean more rail rapid cars and some more rail rapid guideway systems. We see an encouraging trend in the smaller airports actively soliciting the construction of industrial plants or business offices or sales offices near their airports. They do it obviously because they want to get people using the airport.
There are only about 500 airports in the United States that are served by scheduled airline service. And there are 12,000 airports that can be used by general aviation or by business aviation transportation.
We think the potential for growth in air freight is really outstanding. Take, for example, a 40-foot van that goes on the back of a truck or is carried aboard ship today. The new wide-body freighter aircraft, 747, will be capable of taking those 40-foot vans. Who would think, for example, that a head of lettuce could be shipped profitably from California to Hong Kong? But we've done that in the last year, and there will be more air-eligible traffic moving than we've ever seen before.
So we'll still be a nation on the move in 1980, even though the methods by which we move ourselves and our merchandise are likely to continue to change. All it will take, I can hear some skeptics saying right now, is the cash. Or will it? For cash itself may be one of the disappearing commodities of 1980, as we will see when we look now at the future world of finance.
Good morning. Good morning. 2 years from now, I won't have to make this trip twice a month. My payroll check will be deposited automatically into the bank through electronic funds transfer. More and more, we will be buying things by using a credit card, which will automatically take cash from your checking account and put it into the store's account. Well, many retailers want to have their own card because they can have direct access to their customers. They can identify their best customers immediately and use them for direct mailing. And more sales are being done through direct mail, through catalogs or small leaflets.
There would be merchandise that could be shown on a separate marketing cable television channel, and the purchaser or the buyer could look at the merchandise, make a selection, and with the device on top of the television set, determine if they want to see this sent to their home, if they want to make this purchase. So it could be done electronically.
If the way we pay our bills is bound to change, the change will come none too soon for many of the nation's bankers.
The studies conducted within the banking industry indicate that the check volume is growing at such a rate that by 1980 it will be double the volume of 1970, which was 21 billion checks. That would mean in 1980 the volume would be in excess of 42 billion checks. The banking industry is very much concerned about this. They do not want to fall into the same series of problems that occurred within the brokerage industry in the back office. Electronic funds transfer and automated clearinghouse concepts are what we believe to be the answer to that problem.
But the prospect of a glitteringly automated electronic future should not be taken as a suggestion that there is no pain ahead in the world of finance, not while both interest rates and inflation remain well above their historic highs.
Now, I don't think we'll go back to 1 or 2% inflation, but we could quite reasonably taper off at, say, 4% inflation per year, and that's livable, because the rest of the world will inflate even more. And if the United States could average out at about 4% a year, we can live with that. And I'm hopeful that we'll work back towards that end.
The next time we have tight money, I'm quite certain that we'll see interest rates
substantially above the 12% level, perhaps in the area of 13 or 14%. We are not building the houses that are going to be needed in the next 5 years. We should be building over 2 million units a year, and at the present time we're producing about 1.5 million units. The reasons for this, of course, the high rate of interest has eliminated so many people from being able to buy a house.
By 1980, 98% of all housing in America will be furnished by condominiums, apartments, or mobile homes. The land cost, because of the ecology and many other problems of scarcity, has become almost prohibitive, and we have to have higher density in our housing. The building cost and labor cost is all going up with the inflation. So by 1980, a single-family detached house will be almost impossible to obtain.
So the chances are slim that the U.S. will soon return to the low rates of inflation or of interest that were common in this country as recently as the early 60s. But we still may do a better job of outperforming the rest of the world, and as we are about to see, the typical businessman of 1980 is going to have to be a global thinker like never before.
Well, one of the big changes that's going to have to take place in the thinking of all businessmen, large and small, is a recognition that we're all part of the world economy. And what happens 5,000 miles away can have a direct effect on an individual company's P&L. The filling station operator on a street corner in a small town suddenly aware now of what happens in Saudi Arabia. And that's only indicative of what's going to happen in the future for all businessmen. One of the things he's going to have to learn is how to adapt his business practices and traditions to the business practices and traditions in other parts of the world. It's more than just learning how to eat raw fish in Japan or borscht in Russia.
I think that we're going to see the exercise of what you might call commodity power by those countries that have a bit of a hammerlock on particular supplies of raw materials, whether it's bauxite or copper or what have you. I notice they've done it in coffee. And until the world develops multiple sources of supply, they're going to have us a bit by the throat.
We only have 200 million people in the United States, roughly, and there's something like 3.5 billion people in the rest of the world. The only reason that we haven't had a market in the rest of the world before is because the economy of the rest of the world hasn't been anywhere near what the economy of the United States has been. And, of course, the economy of the United States has been there because of our machinery. That's the only thing that elevated us, our machinery and our form of government, free thought. And it's our technology, it's our know-how, it's the way we do things that the rest of the world wants to copy. And someday, all the people in China are going to want automobiles and airplanes, and all the people in Africa are going to want these things.
In all probability, the primary business factors between 1977, say 1980, are going to be influenced by government and industry joined together to compete with the rest of the world for international trade. Industry and government must, and they will, work far closer together to compete in the international arena, much as the French government supports French industry and foreign sales, and British government supports British industry and foreign sales. The U.S. government and U.S. industry absolutely must join together if we're going to have success.
You know, a lot of American businessmen think nothing of making a trip from the East Coast to the West Coast to sign up a piece of business, but if it means getting a passport and traveling 3,000 miles in the other direction, suddenly it becomes a big production. We have to get over that mentality. If we're going to do business around the world, we have to live as though the rest of the world were our backyard. This is something that American businessmen have to get adjusted to, even though it does involve getting shots in both arms before you go.
So that's a preview of some of the ways it may be for American businessmen in 1980 in 5 key areas: the workforce, energy, transportation, finance, and international competition. If an increasingly complex world calls for more and better planning, and in an era when all major institutions have come under new and critical scrutiny, the role and practices of business itself are no longer to be taken for granted.
I believe the businessmen in this country by and large, people of high integrity. I know they're under attack. The entire profit system's under attack. And some way, somehow, we as business people have got to do a better job of telling our story. Perhaps be better statesmen. I don't know. Maybe work harder at it.
It seems to me like one of the jobs that business has to do in the next 4 or 5 years is to reestablish this legitimacy that it once had. And so I think that business ought to sit down and figure out what its problems are and to figure out how to resolve these problems. And that way, I think, in a few years, we should be able to get back some of that legitimacy and credibility that we have lost.
Every businessman has a moral and social responsibility. Business should, even perhaps at the expense of profitability, move to encourage moral behavior on the part of the government and other businesses. In other words, business has the responsibility to decide what is moral and what is responsible, and to act. This makes good sense today, and will have greater meaning in the future as young people currently entering the workforce begin to move up through the management ranks. That kind of investment does not fall straight through to the bottom line, but it will pay off for a company through greater motivation and productivity from its employees.
Whatever the future brings, we know it will be a package of problems and opportunities different from any we have seen before. The future always brings surprises, but the wise modern businessman knows that he cannot afford to be totally surprised. He must either plan for the future or be trampled by it. As you've seen, there are no pat answers. Even the experts can't agree among themselves as to exactly how business in the future is going to look. But the changes are coming in each of these areas, and we've tried to give you some of the information you'll need for your personal and business planning. We hope that what you've just seen has helped in focusing your attention on some of the potholes and pitfalls, plus some of the interesting twists and byways that you are likely to encounter.